we're going to be talking about the culture that we live in today, the society that we live in. So a few bits to the introduction. When I say our culture, I'm talking about the Western culture that is kind of across Europe and America. That is not the only culture in the world. So when I'm saying today's culture, I'm talking about the culture that we, people in this church, are living in. Even if we're not a part of that culture, the predominant culture around us is that. However, there are many other cultures. And also, within our culture, there are subcultures. So I'm going to make some sweeping generalizations, some very, very general statements, and you'll be able to think of examples against what I'm saying. You'll say, oh, no, some people that aren't like that, and some people don't think that, and you're right. I'm making generalizations. So, by definition, when you do a generalization, I'm talking about what the majority maybe are, there will be exceptions to what I'm talking about. Doesn't mean I'm wrong, just means you can't talk about everybody in one sentence. Next thing is, I'm going to be talking about 4 specific pressures, 4 specific characteristics of the culture we live in. Because those put pressure on us. The fact that we live in this culture means that to a certain extent there's pressure for us to take on board this culture, to follow these pressures of this culture. So one of the reasons I'm talking about this is because we do not want to succumb to that pressure. I want to be clear, I'm not condemning anybody. So although I will be speaking negatively about these things, that's not the same as condemning the people. You know, you grow up in a culture, that's how you are. It's not your fault to grow up in a culture that thinks these things. So I don't want to come across as somebody who condemns. I want to point out problems, but I don't condemn people for that. Of course, God wants us to change, He wants to help us to change. So, number 1, I'm going to go quickly because I want to get through. The first piece of this culture that I want to talk about is what I call radical individualism. So individualism, we're all individuals, but radical, pushing that to a really high degree. You can sum it up by this phrase: we can all think and do what we want, and it doesn't matter to anybody else. That's kind of the prevailing thing in our culture. I'm an individual, I can do what I want. It's up to me to make a decision. Now, let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with a lot of this. We are individuals. God sees each one of you as an individual. He doesn't see us as just like one amorphous community church. He knows you by name. He knows the number of hairs on your head. He knows the number of hairs on my head. It's just like easy for him when it comes to my head. But we are all individuals. And we do have to make our own decisions. That is correct. I'm not suggesting you don't make decisions. You absolutely do. I'm also clear we are all supposed to be different. God made us. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are unique. There's nothing wrong in enjoying the fact that we are all individuals. Okay? These are not bad things. Individualism in itself, recognizing the individual, is probably a good thing. But not radical, not pushing it too far. You see, here's what the Bible tells us, and to be honest, from experience. All of us are basically selfish. There's a certain amount of stuff that we'll do for other people, generally people that we like, generally people that are part of our family, generally people who will be nice to us. So we might expand a little bit who we'll be willing to be nice to. At the centre, the Bible talks about our flesh, sometimes translated as our sinful nature. And it means that people predominantly look after their own interests. And if you go back a few decades, people understood this and they saw it as a bad thing. They said promoting the individual is a bad thing. Telling people to be selfish is a bad thing. But now, things are changing. Today's culture is pushing so hard, you can do what you want. You are an individual. You just go for it. feel like. And that level of individualism leads to problems, which I'm going to go into quite a level of detail about now. The first area of the problem is it gives people a sense of entitlement. You keep telling people, you're an individual, you can do it, you go for it, you can do what you want. Well, people start to feel entitled. They say, well, okay, I can do what I want. Then I'll do whatever I want. But then it goes a step further. I should be helped to do what I want. You should put in place the things. This is what I want to do, so people should help me to be able to do what I want to do. I should be given the money. I should be given the training. I should be given the opportunity. If I'm not getting it, well, it's their fault because they're not giving it to me. People feel entitled. And if people don't know what to do, they want options. They want to explore every option. Give me all the options. I don't know what to do. Lay it on a plate for me. Let me try this, let me try this, let me try this, until I find out what I want to do. It's your responsibility, whoever you are, to sort this out. Society, find a thing for me to do. And if something goes wrong, well, I was just being true to myself. I know it caused a problem, but hey, I was just trying to be true. I was just trying to go with what I felt was right. So don't blame me that it went wrong. It's not my fault. We all should just be doing what we feel, and if it goes wrong, well, it's not my fault. In fact, now it's gone wrong, somebody should help me fix it. I know I've now got no money or no job, or I've got an eviction or whatever, but somebody else now needs to fix it for me. I can't do it myself. You need to do it for me. That sense of entitlement. There's an idea. I want a leader who gives me what I want. If I'm looking for leadership, who do I look for? All right, this is what I want. Which leader's going to give me what I want? Not thinking about anybody else. Not thinking about the good of anybody else. Not thinking about the implications. Just, I want a leader who will give me what I want. And if any leader tries to say, oh, no, that's not right, that's not a good thing to have, that's not a good way to go, well, then they're being oppressive. You're oppressing me. You're not letting me have what I want. You're not letting me do what I want. So that leader is characterized as an oppressive leader. And then what you do is you say, well, I'll have a new leader. I'll pick a new leader who does give me what I want. And that's why regularly when people are unhappy with one set of leaders, there's an election, and they pick a new set of leaders who are promising to give you what you want. Except they never seem to do that, do they? The new set of leaders come in with a whole set of promises, and it very, very rarely seems to make any difference. People still have the sense of entitlement because they want what's best for them, radically individually. The second aspect of this that you see is when people will just ignore facts. They will ignore information. There's this idea. If you don't like the facts of the situation, get your own facts. Get some new facts. You can believe what you want. Every person in the world has the right to believe whatever they want. And let's be clear, you do. You do have the right. You know, we Christians, we have the right to believe in Christianity. We're very fortunate to be in a country where that right is recognised. But if somebody wants to believe something else, that's fine. They have the right to believe something else. But here's the problem that we have with radical individualism. People say, I believe it, without thinking about the facts. You say, well, I believe it. Well, why do you believe it? Well, I just do. It doesn't make sense. I just do. See, here's the thing. Just because you believe something doesn't mean you can ignore anything you don't like about it. I'm a Christian because over many, many years I have examined stuff about the world, stuff about science, stuff about life, and I continuously come back to the fact that the Bible is true. If it's not true, if somebody can demonstrate to me something, I'm willing to have any conversation. Somebody can show me that what I believe has facts that disprove it, well then, why would I want to believe it? Why would I believe something is true? And yet now, we have these tribes, in effect, not the 12 tribes of Israel, but we have political tribes. So I believe this, I believe that. Well, let's look at some evidence about what happens when you do that. Oh, no. Let's run the economy in different ways in this first, for example. And people say, if you do that, this is going to happen. No, it won't. So she enacts a policy because she believes it will be right. You can't pick your own facts. And unfortunately, sometimes people do something because they believe it's right, and then all goes wrong. And then you're left in a position, like someone like this person, who still to this day says, I was right, and it was all complete coincidence that wasn't my fault, to do with external market forces that meant that the economy crashed after I did what I did. She doesn't like the fact that she made a mistake, so instead of saying, I made a mistake, she's got herself a new set of facts. Nobody, not a Christian, not a politician, not believing in any religion, should say, because I believe this, I'm just going to ignore information. You can check out whether that information is true or not. You don't believe everything that people tell you, but you should check it out. You don't have to believe every expert, but it's worth listening to some experts to see if they've got something to say. Coming to the truth then, is that God sees us as individuals. But we're not only individuals, we're fulfilled in relationships. If we are purely looking after ourselves as number one, you find yourself isolated, lonely, friendless. You get further and further away from relationships. It's not the way the world is meant to be. And not just within families, we are called to work together. As church, as society, we are called to work together. We need good leaders. We need good leaders who will tell us hard truths sometimes. And will take us on a path that may not be easy at first, but it gets you somewhere sensible. Instead of promising you, oh, it'll be dead easy, just vote for me, and I'll do this, it'll be dead easy. And you end up with bad leaders. We desperately need good leaders. And I'm not just talking about countries, I'm talking about councils, I'm talking about churches, I'm talking about within our families. We need good leaders. Philippians 2, verse 3 to 4. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. The opposite of radical individualism. That's what we're called. So, what about us? Do you recognize that pressure in any way? Do you sometimes feel, I just want to do what's good for me? Do you sometimes feel a sense of entitlement? Somebody should do this for me, somebody should do that. You know, even in church, we are not immune to this idea. You get people in churches who are, I'm entitled to this. I go to church, so the church should do this for me, and the church should do that for me. And if they don't, well, I'll go to another church that gives me what I want. That sense of entitlement and creep into places. Ignoring facts. You know, I changed my opinion on some things in the Bible over the years. Because people have said to me, oh, your way of looking at it doesn't seem to match the scriptures. And I go, oh, you're right. So I'm willing to change. And to say, I'm going to ignore your fact. I've been taught this is true, so I'm just going to stick to what I was taught years ago. No, I look at the fact. But do I feel a pressure to ignore those facts so I can just keep on doing the same old thing? Let me be honest with you. I feel all of those pressures. So I need to be aware of them so I don't fall into them. So number one. Next one, next pressure, next way that society works is this: the pursuit of happiness. The US Declaration of Independence talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I am not saying that the pursuit of happiness is a bad thing, okay? I am all for pursuing happiness. In fact, who in their right mind is going to want the opposite? Who believes in the right to pursue being unhappy? It's madness. So of course, pursuit of happiness is important. But the problem is today's culture has now said happiness is the determination of whether something is good or whether something is bad. If something makes you happy, do it. If something makes you unhappy, don't do it. It's bad. It is a crazy mixed up world where we think good and bad is purely dependent on whether something makes us happy in that instant or not. There are many things that might make you happy in that moment, but in the long run, they're very bad for you. Now, the standard of good and bad should be more about consequences. I'm not talking about the God stuff, obviously. God defines us as Christians. But even if you're not a Christian, surely the definition of good and bad is, what is the consequence in the long run? I am not happy studying for my exams. I am bored studying for my exams. Therefore, I will go out and mess around or play on my computer. Playing on my computer makes me happy, so it's good. Studying for my exams makes me unhappy, so it's bad. That's crazy. But if you apply the standard consequences, going on my computer would make me happy, but then I'm going to fail my exams. So it's better not to play on my computer. It is better to do the thing that makes me unhappy now, to study, so I pass my exams, and that opens up opportunities to me. Happiness, or what is good and bad, should be dependent on consequences, not freedom. Society tells us, if you're not happy, you can do something to change. If at any moment you think, I'm not happy, do something to change. For example, go and get a coffee. Yeah? Don't like Costa? Try Starbucks. Try a different brand. Your phone's a bit slow. Do you know what will make you happy? Get a new phone. Get a new job. Not happy with your job? Get a new job. Not happy with your wife? Not happy with your husband? Get a new partner. Divorce them. Somebody else will be good. Just change something. The problem with you is you've got to change something until it makes you happy. It's not right. It's not the way it works. So let me explain something really crucial. If you've not heard this before, this is life-changing. The difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure and happiness. Now, today's society thinks they're the same thing. And there's a great book which explains this. You don't have to read the whole book, so I'll explain roughly what it says. But The Hacking of the American Mind by Robert Lustig explains this. The corporations, the industry, they say to you, if you're feeling pleasure, you're happy. If you're not feeling pleasure in this moment, you're not happy. In order to be happy, you need pleasure. And so what then you need to do is, at any moment, to be happy, you need to consume something. You need to eat something. You need to drink something. You need to buy something. You need to inject something. You need something to make you happy. Because when you get that thing, you feel pleasure. And when you feel pleasure, you're happy. And deliberately, for decades, advertising, films have been pushing this. The media pushes it constantly. If you're not happy, it's because you're not experiencing pleasure. Get pleasure in your life and then you'll be happy. It is nonsense. But we fall into this trap because we see it in every piece of media around us. Contentment doesn't exist in that society. You're either unhappy and you need pleasure, or you're feeling pleasure and you're happy. You're in one state or the other. Now let's go into a bit of science. So neuroscience tells us that as far as the brain is concerned, pleasure and happiness are two different things. Pleasure is based on a neurotransmitter called dopamine. When you do something and the brain likes it, it goes, have a bit of dopamine. You feel pleasure, you feel, oh, that's nice. I eat a bit of chocolate, brain says that was nice, have a bit of dopamine. And I feel happy. That's how it works. That that's why pleasurable things are addictive. Because you think, oh, I like some more of that dopamine thing. Let me do that again. Let me have more of it. Let me have more of it than I did last time. Let me do it more often now than I did before. Addiction is based on the pleasure centers of the brain being activated. Whereas happiness is not caused by dopamine. Happiness is based on something in your brain called serotonin. And when you're going through normal circumstances, in ordinary life, things are okay, your brain keeps up a background level of serotonin. And you feel okay. I'm all right. I'm content. I'm not feeling pleasure, but I'm okay. I'm feeling happy. That's actually how the brain works. It is about contentment, not reward. Your happiness, as far as the brain is concerned, is not about I need to do something to be happy. It's like a background condition when there's nothing wrong. The clearest thing about this is drugs give you pleasure, not happiness. Alright? The various drugs, heroin, cocaine, weed, whatever, people take those to feel pleasure. Do any of those bring happiness? No. The exact opposite. You end up spending a lot of money, you might end up getting addicted, you can experience more and more pleasure and more negativity. And it makes you more and more unhappy. Pleasure and happiness are different. God goes a step further. God says there's something beyond happiness, which is based on what happens. There's something beyond pleasure, which is based on consuming. There is a joy that comes regardless of circumstances and pleasures. Even when everything's falling apart, there is a joy I'm going to heaven. There's a joy, Jesus is my King. There's a joy I can trust God. There's a joy I don't have to be the one in control. I can follow Jesus. In Psalm 16:11 it says, in your presence is fullness of joy. So as Christians, I'm not saying don't pursue pleasure. I'm not saying don't do things that are pleasurable. Don't have a happy life. Do recognize that precious society to be happy and pleasure. We've got something bigger than that. We've got joy there. Third thing. The summary. We, of course, feel the pressure anyway. We do feel that pressure. I feel that pressure. I sometimes get pleasure and happiness and joy mixed up. I sometimes, when I'm feeling down, think I'll have a bit of chocolate because that will make me happy. Truth is, it won't, but it'll give me a bit of pleasure. So yeah, I'm not pretending I don't fall prey. Third thing is the attitude to suffering and death in society. See, today's culture has a real problem. It's got no meaning in suffering. When somebody suffers, it's just like, oh dear, oh, that's horrible. But there's no meaning to it. At best, when somebody suffers, we go, oh dear, they're not happy anymore. Let's hope they get over it and they can be happy again. Could we do something to make them happy again, maybe? But at worst, a tragedy happens and you think, oh well, they'll never be happy again. Because the thing that's happened is so awful, their suffering is so great. I don't see how they're ever going to be happy again. And there is no meaning behind it. And culture, therefore, tries to insulate people from all kinds of suffering. For example, we change our children's story. When my mother told me about Little Red Riding Hood, then the grandma had been eaten. And the wolf was pretending to be grandma, because grandma was dead. Nowadays, in the story, grandma's hiding good. And she's going to get rescued. And the wolf isn't there pretending to be grandma. She's okay. That's how the story is in the books these days. Because we can't let children know about death. Whereas the truth is, some of those stories were told to introduce kids to something, to introduce kids to, you've got to be careful sometimes, to introduce kids to the fact that death is a thing. But our society says, no. Let's pretend it doesn't happen. Let's remove competition. Direct cremation is an interesting new thing in these last couple of decades. See, in many societies, when someone dies, then people come and see the body. More often in our society now, when someone dies, the body's taken away, it's put in a coffin, And people may go and visit the coffee or see the coffee. When you open the coffee, see the person. But we do at least have a funeral. We do at least have something where we remember the person and their thoughts, maybe to set a light next to it. And there is the person who you have. Now, direct cremation is becoming a bigger thing. Once a body is gone, you never see it again. You just pay for the direct cremation. They do it, nobody there when it happens. They just go, whether you want to have some kind of extra service or thing is up to you, but you don't even need to do that. The person who's dead, just put on, we whisk it away, you never need to have anything to do with them again. That's how society is going. But as Christians, we know death is not the end. We know that suffering has an important function within this world. We know that it shows us the difference between good and evil. We know that it gives opportunity for compassion. Nobody has suffered. How can we show compassion? Nobody ever needed compassion. There'd be no compassion in the world. Responsibility. We as Christians have a responsibility to help. If there were no suffering in the world, where would we ever find somebody to help? I do a 3-part series all about suffering. I won't go into the whole detail now. We know God is not the source of suffering. There is selfishness that causes suffering. There's the enemy that causes suffering. God does not cause suffering. Romans 8:28, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. We also know as Christians, that even when we suffer, God will bring something good out of it. If you're talking to somebody and they realise that they have no understanding of suffering and death, that the society that they live in has no answers, that can be a really powerful point when you start to talk to them about God. Because it's one of the places where this society suddenly is faced with the fact that the culture they follow cannot cope with this. They just try and walk it out and get rid of it. Last thing I want to talk about is the idea of the Pharisees. What are Pharisees like? In the Bible, the Pharisees, they are these legalistic, judgmental people on issues of morality, on issues of religion. They have fixed ideas and they say, this is what you have to do. And they condemn and judge people who didn't. And Christians can be like that. Over the years, Christians have been like this. We have judged people. We have said your behaviour is unacceptable. We've condemned people for what they do. And that's turned people away from the church. They've said, I'm not good enough for the church. My behaviour is not good enough for the church. So I think church is not a problem. But that's changing. See, today's Pharisees are outside the church. And they say, I'd never join a church. Church isn't good enough for me. The church is judgmental. The church condemns. The church, those are people who are always having a go at you, they're holier than thou. I don't want to be in the church. That's how the position of Pharisee has changed. See, the new Pharisees, who promote radical individualism, who say we should all just pursue happiness, they say we should all be free. And you Christians, you don't let people be free. You try and impose rules. There should be everybody free to do whatever they want. So if we say we'd be against that, they against it. Somebody wears a cross at work in some settings, they get sacked. Somebody says the wrong thing, they have a vicious media campaign against it. Now this is by the people who are saying we should all be free. And yet, they're like the Pharisees. We can only be free if we're the kind of free they want us to be. We think differently, well then you can't be free. The modern Pharisees can be very hypocritical. In the way that they say we want you to be free, but then they condemn. But some other things, greenwashing goes on. Oh, what we're going to do is we're going to say we're good for the environment. Our products are terrible for the environment, but we're going to plant some trees. And we won't tell people how bad we are for the environment, we'll just have all of our packaging. If you plant this, we will donate 5p to planting trees to save the planet. really care. They're just hypocrites. Virtue signaling. Where people, companies, individuals, they say something because it's popular to say it. They don't believe it. They want to be popular. So they say, well, what are people saying? Let's do that. Interesting example. In 2022, Ukraine was invaded by Russia. The war is still going on. Sorry, if you're a Russian and you support the war, it's not a war. Is it? They've got another name for it. The biggest video game franchise in the world is Electronic Arts FIFA. There have been more copies sold of that than any other video game. And in 2022, because Russia invaded Ukraine, they took all the Russian players. And in 2023, because Russia was still in Ukraine, they took all of the Russian players out. But then, there are other games where the Russian players are included, and people want to pretend they're teams, and they can't include some players. So then they let the Russian players back onto their game. They included them within the game so you could choose to add a Russian player in the team. I wonder how shocked Putin was that people couldn't pick Russian players for 2 years. I wonder if Electronic Arts had donated 5% of the profits of their game to Ukraine to look after people who were suffering. I wonder if that would have been doing something. Whereas just saying, oh, we need to take the Russian players out of the game. Or, because very bad, Russia, very bad. Ukraine, very good. Let's say a thing. It makes no difference to me. It's easier to post angry messages on social media than it is to actually do something. And we as Christians can fall into this trap. We can get online, get on Facebook, whatever, rant about how things ought to be, whilst doing nothing. So, are you affected by the Pharisees' today's society? Do you find yourself saying things to fit in with those around you? Or do you find yourself keeping quiet so people don't know what you believe? Do you find yourself being a Pharisee sometimes? Being quick to judge and complain, but you don't actually show love? Because I am affected in all of these ways. And I have to be careful. So I'm not. To close then, how do we respond? Well, the most important thing I want you to do to respond to today is this. Don't worry. Okay? Because this can be a bit of a depressing thing, isn't it? I've just told you all of these terrible ways that society is pressing on us and everything's going terribly and all. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Next week, I'm going to come back and we're going to look at why we don't need to worry about this in any detail. Okay? I'll talk about that next week. But just for now, let's be aware of these 4 pressures. Let's understand the society that we live in. Let's understand how it affects us. Beware of radical individualism, of becoming the selfish centre of your own universe. Beware of the pursuit of happiness, because actually joy is more important than the happiness or the pleasure. And please don't get happiness and pleasure mixed up and think, I'm not feeling pleasure at the moment, so I'm going to have to spend some money to get some pleasure. Because that leads into addictive pattern of behaviour, whereas you can be happy without spending the penny. Your attitude to suffering and death. Remember there is meaning. Remember it is not an accident, but God created a world where suffering can be met with love and compassion and kindness and help and support. And death is not the end. Lastly, beware of being intimidated by the Pharisees of today's society. We are also going to respond by taking the bread.